And we are live in another mode workshop. Welcome, Joe. It's awesome to have you. GM, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are. I hope it's not 4 a.m. in the morning you're watching this, but you know how devs are. We cannot blame you guys. Hey, Joe, how are you?
Hey, Fetty. I am doing fantastic today, man. I am super excited to talk with you all and your community here.
Let's go. Awesome. So, first things first, I'm CryptoFede. I'm head of DevRel at Mode. We do this kind of workshop every now and then, every 1 or 2 weeks with key ecosystem partners, and they just come have a spot to share cool things that they're building, their products, their offerings. And first of all, Joe, can you tell us a bit what you do at Thirdweb? What's your role and why you're here today?
Of course. So I'm Joe. I'm a solutions engineer here at Thirdweb, and it is my job to help anyone and everyone, especially you all in the mode community, build with Thirdweb. Get your products off the ground, get your businesses off the ground, add Web3, the next generation of the internet, as we call it, to your own applications. And using Thirdweb is one of the easiest ways to do it. And it's my job to help you guys accomplish that. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the in-app wallet and how it frees up onboarding for web 2 natives, as most of them are called. But essentially it's just, how do we onboard users into your web 3 apps easily and without friction? So that's going to be today's topic, and how and what I hope to inform you guys all today with.
Love it. So if you have a regular, boring Web2 application and you want to spice it up with Web3 and easy solutions, then this workshop is for you as well. Um, I have an extra little question, and that is, a lot of people may think that only DevRels do workshops. Do you consider yourself a little bit of a DevRel as well as a solutions engineer? And yeah, can you tell us a bit of like maybe your day to day at Thirdweb or things that maybe you solve? Can you
Yeah,
share?
so, interestingly, I do there's a lot of cross paths, right, in my role. Not only do I help individuals build out their applications, but as you mentioned, I do some DevRel work as well, so there is some crossover there. I do these workshops. I do sometimes we host, create content and spread it out there to help individuals learn about their web, and essentially just, again, bringing Web3 to these Web2 apps, bringing Web3 to dApps that individuals want to create, and bring blockchain technology to a wider audience through our SDK package. So, day to day, what's interesting is I meet with tons of different people who are building tons of different apps. So, I've seen quite a few different configurations for everyone. I've seen quite a few different examples of people who are building things on Web3, and I just kind of guide them through on the best solutions, the best products that they can use from Thirdweb to make their dreams a reality, make their kind of scribbles on a paper a real life thing that anyone can interact with. And then, of course, I work with you, Fetty. I work with
Epic.
individuals who want to host workshops and bring this to a wider audience. So, yeah, day to day, it's always something new, always something different, and it's what keeps me excited.
Love it. So if you need a map, a third web map of where to go, how to implement things, what's the best practices, if you have feature requests, whatever you may need, Joe is the map. So I love it. I love that. And super happy to be working with you. And with all that being said, I'll shut up now. I want to jump into the workshop. I want to see, maybe I'll interrupt you with a few questions every now and then. But I would love to see what you have prepared for us today and how we can use in-app wallets to make our boring Web2 applications a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let me go ahead and see if we can share the slides here. Perfect. There we go. As Fetty mentioned, today I'm going to be giving you guys a little bit of an overview on the third web in general, as well as kind of focusing on in-app wallets, on giving you all the ability to reduce that friction that people feel as they come onto Web3 applications. We all know that wallets and signatures that pop up kind of interrupt that experience for a user, and it can be kind of jarring for individuals who don't know about setting up a wallet and securing their private keys, setting up a wallet and knowing their wallet address to find out where their assets are, or transfer funds from a DEX, or all of these different kind of components that really create a barrier of entry to the mass audience that we want to onboard as we create our apps, right? So we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about that today. If for anyone in the live streams, if you've heard of Thirdweb before, please feel free to let me know in the chat. I am always interested to hear on who's heard of us before, who's kind of used us and has some experience. It is always interesting to see some of that. So, and then again, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I've given Fetty the green light to kind of interrupt me and bring these questions to the surface. This is going to be super informal, guys. This is not a I stand here and lecture you all. This is going to be very, very interactive for anyone
I'm
who
gonna
asks questions.
interrupt you a lot, Joe. I'm
Bring it,
sorry, but
man. I
it's gonna
love it.
happen.
I love it, dude. I love it. So yeah, quick overview. What is Thirdweb? Right? We have this kind of idea. Thirdweb, this branding. You might have seen our logo around, but what really at its core, what is Thirdweb? What we like to describe Thirdweb is that we are a full stack, open source Web3 development platform. And so that's great on on marketing materials, but what does that mean, right? What does that actually mean? Well, it means that any platform you guys are developing on, any Web3 dApp that you're building or solution that you're trying to build out, we support. This means that if you're doing things like mobile applications, we have React Native for that support. If you're doing games, we have native SDKs for Unity and Unreal. And the native part is really important because it means that your applications are now running even faster because they don't have a wrapper around them, right? You're not going through a an additional layer building out these apps. These are natively supported. Um, and it also means that we have everything a Web3 developer needs in order to build out these dApps, right? So if we look at it, we kind of broke it down into these three main buckets because these are the areas that every Web3 developer is going to touch as they build out their applications, right? So, for example, we need front end stuff. We need a way to have our users interact with our dApp. This means wallet connections. This means transaction signatures, things like that. On our front end, we have a backend need, right? Every Web3 developer needs a way to manage transactions, maybe either automatically or manually. They need a way for their transactions to scale once we have hundreds of thousands of users come through our applications. And then every Web3 developer needs some sort of on chain asset, right? So, or interaction. We know at blockchain, at Web3, um, contracts are a very core piece of this ecosystem, of this Web3 technology stack. And so we have tooling to help you guys create these contracts that govern the rule set for your dApps. So not only is Thirdweb full stack in that we touch front end, back end, on chain, and additionally, we've also recently come out with a indexer called Thirdweb Insights, which is our infrastructure piece. Um, and Insights is essentially just a way for you guys to query blockchain data. You guys can create your own custom endpoints, all of this great stuff. Think of it as kind of the go-to area for querying really big pieces of data on the blockchain very quickly and very cheaply, right? A lot of people really love that it's super cheap. So that's an additional piece there. And so I want to go a little bit about what each bucket actually entails, and we'll go through some of these items deep a little bit later on. Noro, hello everyone. Hello, Noro. Glad to have you here. So front end. What is included in our front end bucket at Thirdweb? This means it has everything such as wallet connectors, right? And we've talked about this a little bit. Every Web3 app needs a way to associate a user to the app. And on blockchain technology, that's through a wallet. So we have wallet connectors. These are your EOA wallets. These are kind of your traditional wallets that people are familiar with. We have in app wallets. These are your social logins. This is really what the focus of today's workshop is going to be on these in-app wallets and how you can bring a familiar login experience to Web3 in your dApp creations. We have things like contract SDKs. These are our SDK tooling kits for our things like TypeScript, React, React Native, Unity, all that stuff. We have a payment system in front end. This means that you guys can actually have your users on ramp directly in your app. This means they don't have to leave your app, which we know is a killer, right? Every time you have to direct your user to a different area right, outside of your application, you're increasing the odds of them not coming back. So having the ability to have fiat on ramps and payments within your dApps means that users can stay within your ecosystem even longer.
I'm gonna bother you for the first time. Yeah. So my question here um, is it complex? So once I implement it, like on the soft, I'm a dev, right? I
Mhm.
don't want to deal with any legal stuff. I don't want to deal with any on ramps, off ramps, but I want to offer it for my users, right? Does Thirdweb handle like everything end to end? So I could just like put it in my app and people can send crypto, have their own wallet in the app and on ramp, off ramp, etc.
Exactly, and this we're coming back to our full stack title, right? So Thirdweb handles everything end to end. We will give you guys the ability to perform KYC for your first time users directly through this modal, directly through this payment infrastructure on our front end components. We provide components for everything, right? You don't even have to build them out yourself. You can use our front end components that are already pre-built, if you would like. But if you're maybe a little bit more technical and you want that branding and you want that customization feel, that's an option as well, right? We are fully composable, meaning you guys can use either ThirdWeb's pre-built components, or you can build an entire experience from the ground up yourself using our toolkit.
Sick. So you can use both the fast
Exactly,
way
man.
or your white labeled solution where you
Exactly.
can style it yourself. Love it.
Yep.
I'll
Yep.
let you keep going then.
Cool. And then finally, ecosystem wallets is something that I think is going to be interesting to a lot of people. Think of this as your own branded wallet. This also touches on in-app wallets. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in depth in a couple slides here. But think of ecosystem wallets as kind of your branded wallet. Traditionally, when people see, hey, I want to log in through a MetaMask, now they can say, hey, I want to log in through Mode Wallet, right? So now we give the ability for developers, whether they're chains, whether they're solo devs, to create your own branded wallet. And now users who log into this wallet can have the same wallet address and the same wallet account depending on what app they're moving in. So if this ecosystem wallet is available across many apps, the user can actually have this unified identity across all these apps. Super powerful stuff that I'm excited to get into. And so on chain, we talked a little bit about these are our contract aspects. So in this case, the RIP provides audited and also modular contracts. This includes things like pre-builts. We already have contracts that cover the most common use cases. So for example, NFT drops, right? ERC 721, 1155, tokens such as ERC 20s. If you want to create those, we have contracts for that. Marketplaces, we have all these kinds of pre-builts already for you guys to use. So you don't even have to be a Solidity dev. If you just want to build your app and you know what kind of contract type you need, you can spin these up through our dashboard really, really quickly and get running on building your app, right? You can focus on building your app and not have to worry about the underlying Solidity code for these contracts. And as I mentioned, these deployment tools, one of them being the dashboard. And then if you are a Solidity dev and you want to create these from scratch, again, ThirdWeb lives in a world of and. We are full stack, meaning if you want to do it from scratch, we give you the ability through our CLI. You can do that. If you want to do it through from our dashboard, right, just to spin it up real quick, you can do that as well. So anyone who wants to build a Web3 app, whether you're highly experienced or not in the contract area, can still do so using ThirdWeb tooling. And finally, we have our backend option here. So backend is really going to be about scale, things like gasless transactions at a high level. You can do through our product called Thirdweb Engine. And Engine is really cool. We'll talk a little bit about it a little bit later here. We have a concept called backend wallets. So you can generate these backend wallets and use them to do a variety of things. You can use them for things like webhooks. You can use them for things like transacting on behalf of a user, right? Instead of having the user themselves start a transaction, you can use this backend wallet to do that. You can do things like automated gas and nonce management. This means that if a transaction fails, you do not have to manually retry that transaction. Engine will actually do that for you. It will notice, it will recognize when a transaction fails, and it will automatically retry it. It handles all the gas settings for it. It handles increasing the nonce of the transaction for you on the back end. You don't have to do any of that. And so for Thirdweb backend and scaling capabilities, it is one the easiest because it is a simple cloud hosted API endpoint. Two, it is the fastest at handling objects at scale or transactions at scale. Rather, we have hundreds of thousands of transactions going through some of our engine instances for individuals, and these include some notable companies such as Treasure or Zai, where they have engine instances handling a whole bunch of transactions, and I'm talking hundreds of thousands of transactions. So really cool stuff, and it's great to see companies being able to scale up and flourish with third web backend stuff. And so I'm gonna go a little bit about Connect. This is again part of our front end bucket, and so today we really want to harp and talk about in-app wallets and what are some of the pains that people face as they try and connect to an app, right? So in this case, um, onboarding experience on Web3 traditionally pretty painful. Again, a user has to go through and create a wallet. They have to secure their private key. They have to know their wallet address as they log into some of these apps. And all of that with a Thirdweb Connect is our way to kind of extract all of this information out, right? So we can do things a couple different ways with Thirdweb Connect. One, as you see here, you can have it totally customizable. You can have Thirdweb build out your UI either through our components, or you can do it yourself and build it out as as customizable as you want to fit your branding, to fit your product narrative, and really sell to your users that hey, this is my product. It's not a kind of drag and drop that we see with some other solutions. It doesn't really cut out that user experience. It really does help flow everything together and keep your users engaged within your app very, very nicely. So to do that, we have a couple of solutions here through our Connect SDK, as well as showing here the Unity SDK, right? So again, all of the stuff you see here is not only available on web apps, but you can also use it on things like games or even mobile apps, right? All of these SDKs that you see. And we'll go through a little bit about that here as well. And so,
I'm
go
in
ahead, Freddy.
fee. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you go back
Yes, yes,
one
yes.
slide? I'm not very good with the games, right? But I do want to know, like with the Unity, yes, SDK, can you name a few things that you can do with it? Like a few things that you could do, so like so I can imagine. Okay, these are the things that I can use it for.
Yes, yes, yes. So for the Unity SDK, what we really pride ourselves on is that you have the ability to just focus, and I mean really focus on creating the best game available, right? The cool part about some of these games that we see, for example, Off the Grid is the latest and greatest Web3 game, right? But not many people
Mhm.
know it's Web3. Not a lot of people know that it's connected to blockchains and that wallets are generated and that transactions are being sent back and forth on the blockchain. Um, and that's really where we think Web3 gaming is going to move into. So, um, with our Unity SDK, you can really focus on making your game first, and then pulling in our SDK, you can have it to where you can put in things like, okay, well, what chain do you want to work on? Do you want to be multi-chain? What wallets do you want to support? Do you want to have social logins? Do you want to have EOA logins? Right? Again, this is all going to depend on your game and what structure you want. But we already have the components built out for you. We already have the prefabs for Unity specifically built out for you. We have the blueprints in Unreal built out for you so that way you guys can use Unreal Engine as well. Um, a lot
Wow.
of a lot of different components, and so anything that you guys can think of traditionally, like, hey, I need to make a transaction, I need to send funds, I need to send NFTs, I need a mint. All of that can still be done on a Unity SDK, right? So yeah, it's really the way I like to think of SDKs is you can do anything blockchain related. The reason why we have a split in SDK is for that native support, and that native support is what speeds up the application, right? Performance is what keeps performance high. It's what keeps users from bouncing between your apps. And that's why we decided, hey, you know what? Native support is super important, and that's why we have our different SDKs. Yeah. So
That's why I was asking because like I was gonna point out that it's a lot of engineering like work to have all of these SDKs and like specific for each type of development. And if we make a like let's zoom in into like a developer perspective of like
Mhm.
game developers, how probable is it that they already know, like they know how to code in Web3 with like regular Web3 libraries, interact with an RPC, manage wallets, funds, etc. And also they know how to code games and logic, and all of these things. So we need to understand that devs are becoming like multifaceted,
Yeah.
multi areas, like working in different things. So maybe a backend then ends up working in a game, and you need these things to develop fast, to develop like quick MVPs, but that can also scale later on. So I think things like the Unity SDK or like all of these specific SDKs help devs that are focused into, for example, gaming. As you said, just focus on the games. And then if you want to have a wallet, make transactions, make this, I don't know, a marketplace where users can play a game. It's Web 2, but the marketplace is Web 3, where you have NFTs and they can trade it. Then you have a specific SDK for that. So yeah, that helps me see what the Unity SDK is capable of. So yeah, great.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, right? Devs are becoming more and more multidisciplined as we go through,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting to see. But yeah, great call outs there, man. Cool. Going on. I want to talk a little bit about pay. This is our on ramp product, and this is kind of what that UI looks like using our pre-built components. Again, everything you see here is fully customizable. You can build out your own user experiences. If you don't like the look and feel of this, you can always change it on your own. It's as you can see, it's also really easy, right? A user says, "Hey, starting on the left hand side, I want to buy a certain amount of cryptocurrency using my credit card. How do I do that?" Right? So you can easily they select their credit card option, they hit continue. It finds a route for that currency, meaning that it's finding the fastest and cheapest route for the user. Right? Again, we're the user experience here is super important to us. So it's not only the fastest, but also the cheapest route that you guys can use for this transaction. And then they get a nice little buy success modal, right? They now have funded their connected wallet through Pay. Something interesting that I want to call out here is that anyone developing with Thirdweb Pay, there's a 1% transaction fee on crypto swaps. And of that 1% fee, 70% goes back to you as the developer. So now you're monetizing your users in another way that ensures the longevity of your business, right? It ensures that your apps are going to be able to live through a longer period of time through another option of monetization for your users. Just something that I like to call out here for everyone watching. And then before I move on, I'm actually going to share my screen here a little bit. Let me present my screen because I want to show you something called the Third Web Playground. And I'm gonna actually paste the link here in the chat, Fetty, as well.
Yep. Great.
And so here you can see, you should be able to see my screen now.
Yep.
Perfect.
We can. There we
Perfect.
go.
Cool. So this is our Thirdweb Playground. Now, what's cool about Thirdweb Playground, and I'll actually take you to the front here, is it lets anyone start playing with Thirdweb SDK without having to implement anything. And it shows you the code it takes to implement what you're playing with, which is really cool. So, for example, today is all about in-app wallets. Today, we're talking about social logins, breaking down barriers on Web 2 users into your app. So I'm going to go ahead and click on in-app wallets, and we can see examples here of our pre-built components. You can see examples of the social options we have and the code it takes to implement these options. So if we look at the right side here, we can see things like what social logins people might want to use, right? Whether it's currently like a Google account, Twitter, Farcaster is another option, Line, and we just actually introduced Twitch. So a lot of people in the gaming space, you're familiar with Twitch probably. You can actually use Twitch as well as a possible social login information, which is really great. You can do things like direct email addresses, phone numbers, passkeys, right? For everyone who has passkey capabilities, and you can even enable a guest mode. Maybe you don't want to restrict users to making an account before being able to try out your app, right? And then once they do try it out and they say, "Oh, let me convert it to account," they can have the same wallet address as well. So guest modes are hugely powerful in enabling the conversion rates as you guys build out your apps and as you think about onboarding users, into a Web3 native experience. They don't have to worry about having a wallet generated for them. They don't have to worry about managing private keys, any of that stuff. But they are still there and available if a user wants to do so. So looking at the code on the left hand side here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you guys can see we have very made it very very simple, right? So first, as we go through and talk about, well, what kind of wallets do we want to support? For example, in-app wallets, it's very simple. All we have to do is specify what authentication methods we want, right? So, and in our docs we have a whole list of social logins that we have, and so here's a few of them listed out here. For example, if we wanted to do, Google X Apple, this is what these lists will look like to get what you see on the right hand side, right? This is what you build out to get this option here. um, and then, of course, what I want to bring up is that you can also bring in your own any auth endpoint that you guys are using. You don't have to use. You're not restricted to only the popular social logins that we have, right? You can, if you have your own custom JWT token pair that you want to use, you can use that as well through our Thirdweb Connect components. So thinking about, again, in-app wallets, breaking down the friction for users to log in, this is a great way to start. And so if you want a little bit more of a interactive experience, I actually highly recommend here. I'm gonna go ahead and go to playground again. As you look through the playground, click on this sign in one, and you can see here that we can customize, right, the look and feel of it, of what we want to see. So for example, hey, say I don't want phone numbers, but I want to enable line. Okay, well that this is what your component is going to look like. Maybe you want it as just a button, right? Well, here's our button. Here's all of the wallets we can specify. Here are some options like appearance, right? We want to change colors for the modal itself. Do we want to add gas fee sponsorship, right? This is really big for in-app wallets as well, is the ability that you can also sponsor gas so that Web2 users, they have no concept of gas. They have no concept of, I have to fund my account before being able to use account, right? That's a little weird. That's a little jarring and unexpected. So you can actually sponsor this gas before um, for on behalf of a user so that when a user interacts with your app, they don't have to worry about any of this stuff. They can transact, they can stay on your app, and have a smoother experience through this gas sponsorship. And it works both with in-app wallets. It works with regular EOA wallets where you can create smart accounts. All of these great things that we'll talk through. And finally, here is the code. Right, the code is what we're all kind of looking after. As you noticed, as I went through and changed the thing. So, for example, here we have X, right? Say we don't want X, but we want Twitch. Boom, right? It actually changes the code snippet. So now, as you go through and you can create your desired modal, you can create your desired options. You don't have to go in and spend a lot of time looking through our docs. You can actually use this as a really great jumping off point and a great start point for that kind of flow. So just something I wanted to bring out is this third web playground is highly valuable for anyone building apps, anyone working with wallets and whatnot.
This is sick. And what it, I've never seen something this compo. I didn't know about this playground, dude. This is great. Is this kind of new? Has it been around for
Yeah,
a long time?
it's been on for a little bit. We've recently done updates on it, so it looks completely different. You might have seen it in the previous form, but now it is something that we are trying to bring to light even more because I think it helps a lot of devs. It helps people kind of jumpstart that process, and they can play with it, they can mess around with it, and see the code, how the code interacts with it. So,
No,
yeah.
this is the type of. So I'm a very lazy dev, right? Whenever I think like, okay, I need to, I don't know, I need to connect my wallet. I'm like, there must be a solution already built somewhere that meets my needs, right? And in Web3, usually the case is that it's not, right? Most things that you think should be built or tools that should be there already, in Web2 it happens. In Web3, not so much. So I think this is one of those tools where you're like, oh, that is beautiful. Look at that. You're clicking on the code. That is beautiful. Um, See, like exactly that is like I need to add a wallet here, and I have all of these options of like Safe Wallet, multi-sigs here, Rainbow, Ravi, Binance Wallet, OKX. So you can have support for a broad for a lot of things. And I'll add here that this is really good because you can add socials like Discord or like X, etc. And you have the data, you have that user data that later you can do more interesting stuff with your application because you have a broader profile for your user. So yeah, this is really
Absolutely.
sick and really fun. I love that you don't have to implement anything to play around with it. That's also great for lazy devs.
Yeah, yeah, you don't have the beauty of this is that you don't have to, you don't have to enter any sort of credit card information. You don't have to make an account. You don't have to do any sort of pre-form filling, right? There's no user collection data here. You can just go and have fun, right? I think that's something that a lot of developers kind of forget as they build and scale businesses is having fun. And I hope that the playground enables you guys to have fun as you find solutions towards your businesses.
Totally love it.
Cool. So I kind of like the flow we're going here. So if it's okay with you, Freddy, I'm gonna kind of go off our slideshow here, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about this in-app wallet section,
Yeah,
a
for
little bit
sure.
more. Cool.
Would love that.
So, for example, I mentioned, this any auth method, and what it's like to bring this in. For example, what's cool about any auth is that as you see our list of social logins, right? As you see the current out of box support, you might think to yourself, well, what if I need to interact with a Firebase backend, or I need to interact with SIWE, right? Right. Sign in with Ethereum is really common use case as well. We have options for all of that as on our in-app wallets as well that you can look at in our docs. Another option that I see a lot of people ask is, what if I have a user log in with one method and then they lose access to that method? How can they get into their in-app wallet? And remember, in-app wallets are a wallet created through a social login, right? So that means that the user probably doesn't have an EOA, that they don't have a private key matched to it. And so how can they link other accounts to the same account, right? So for example, if I were to go through here, I'm going to sign in on my email here. Let me go ahead and go through this OTP. Cool. And so for example, here now we have some linked profiles. So I, as the user, I said, hey, I want to be able to log in to my account, and I want to be able to use either my email directly or through a Google login. And I want to have that same account tied to my wallet. And that's what's happened here. So now what I've done is through my wallet connect on Thirdweb, right? This is our connect component. We can do things like manage our wallet, and we can have our linked profiles. And you can see that if I were to log in through straight email or my Google account auth method, it is tied to my same wallet address. So this means, say a user comes in, right? And they've lost access to their Google account, and they want to be able to say, "Hey, you know what? I want to log in through my Discord." You can do that as well and have the user recover their accounts on various login auth methods, right? So as long as a user adds these accounts and links these profiles, that is something that they can do as well. So super, super helpful and interesting, and something that in-app wallets kind of provide to mimic a current Web 2 experience, right? So if we think about Web 2 experiences and onboardings, when a user logs into an app, there's usually a, hey, forgot password, or forgot username kind of deal, right? Um, in Web3 with wallets, we don't really have that because the password would probably be a private key, right? We don't want to expose private keys. We don't want to encourage users to be handing them out as well. So in that case, being able to add alternative login methods is super, super helpful. And that's not to say go go ahead, man.
I can tell you're starting to get annoyed by my interruptions,
No,
but
no,
I'm
no, no, no.
sorry. This is how it goes, dude. I'm sorry. This is how it works. No, I wanted to ask before because I think this is really really important, and security is like a big thing in Web3, and managing your own keys is not super easy, of course, and a lot of users don't even know what it is, don't want to know what it is. My question here is, so this basically is linking several logins, so like my Google account straight with my email and password, and I don't know, my X account or my GitHub account to log into the same account, to the same like smart account.
Mhm.
What happens? So wait, then there's almost no way of losing access to it unless I lose access to the original account, right? Like if I log
Exactly.
in with my Google and I lose access to my Google, then of course I'll lose access to the wallet. Um, can I like enforce users to but set more than one login option, for example, because I want to make sure that they don't lose the account and stuff like that? Like, is there more security configurations to this that I can use?
Yeah, that's a great kind of point. Currently, the security configurations are going to be done code wise. So, for example, if you see here, we're actually able to get the list of profiles through this hook here, right? Use profiles, um, and display them. Now, you as the developer can absolutely use this exact same function, this exact same hook. Um, to write logic that enforces the kind of flow you're talking about, right? You can say, "Hey, I want to get this use profiles. How many entries are there? If there's only one, and if it's only an email, then I'm going to force the user to add an additional one, right? They can't move on until they link a future account. Um, and you can even specify, hey, what type of account do you want to force, right? On these profiles. So that is something you guys can absolutely do through your code configurations as you think about your onboarding flows, as you think about your processes.
Yeah, I love it. It's just an object with all the
Hmm.
authentications the users used. So you can just check the object. If they don't have a Google and you want that for the user, then you just, hey, give me your Google account. Please log in with Google. Um, Great. That's awesome. I wanted to get that off my mind. I'll try not to interrupt a lot
No.
more, but I cannot promise anything.
No, truly, truly, I have absolutely zero qualms about it. It is, I love it. I love the interactions.
Awesome. Awesome.
Cool. So I'm gonna jump over here and talk about gas sponsorship with in-app wallets. Gas sponsorship, as I mentioned, is another way to reduce friction when we're talking about onboarding with Web2 users who aren't traditionally familiar with, well, what's even gas, right? Because that brings in a whole nother mess of token talk, of how to fund wallets, how to manage funds as you perform transactions, signing transactions, all this stuff, right? Like this is all stuff that a Web2 user doesn't want to have to think about. So gas sponsorship is another way that you guys can abstract away this very interruptive experience. And with Thirdweb for in-app wallets, as you saw those code snippets, um, it's a very, very simple kind of code change here, where all you have to do is when you turn on and when you're looking at in-app wallets, we're creating smart accounts for these in-app wallets, and we want to be able to sponsor gas. Um, for example, I'm actually going to go through here as well because it lets us mess with it, right? So if I look at code and I look at this sponsor gas, again, you're familiar. This is how we specify our in-app wallets. This is how we specify our Web2 onboarding through social logins. Now, what if I want to make make these gas sponsored, right? Here you can see our connect mobile, and so if we want to do gas sponsorship for our apps, we can go ahead and click that button and we get this code snippet. This means that, hey, we've turned on account abstraction for our in-app wallets. This means that anytime a user logs in through any social login, it will create a smart account. And for those of you who don't know, smart accounts are exactly like regular wallet accounts, except they're governed by a smart contract instead of a piece of hardware like a Ledger wallet or a piece of software like MetaMask, right? So these accounts are now turn into smart accounts and available through account abstraction can sponsor gas on behalf of a user. So very simple, easy way to do it. You can do things like specify what chain you want. So instead of Ethereum, you can specify mode, right? So everyone here who's developing can use mode for your chains. And then you can sponsor that gas. You can specify whether you want to sponsor gas or not as well. So um, through in-app wallets now, not only have we done a login flow for social logins, but you've also provided a way to sponsor gas for your users. Go ahead, Feli.
Yeah, my question is fast. How many chains do you guys have indexed? So like I work with Neural too, and I know Thirdweb covers a lot. So do you have a number kind of around?
Yeah, yeah. So here's something really cool. I'm gonna drop this link in the chat as well. So we have our third web chain list. Now, this chain list is a list of all chains that we have support for our the majority of our tooling. It's over. I think it's. Let's see if I scroll down here. It's over 2,400 chains. I'm actually going to share this tab instead. I have 2,490 chains in which we support our open source tooling
That is
for
crazy.
things like account abstraction. If you wanted to look at what chains, right, we can do things like, hey, what services do we have? Account abstraction. We can go ahead and look at here as well and view that number. So for anyone out there who are looking for a chain, or want to look at modes chain, right? They can do that through this chain list page. They can go ahead and look at what services are turned on, what services are available. So for example, let's go ahead and look at mode, right? We're here, we're talking
Yeah,
about you guys. Let's make this example real. So if we look at mode, we see a couple things. One, mode is eligible for gas sponsorship, right? What does this mean? This means that you guys are available through Optimism Superchain Accelerator. You can go through this application process and have gas sponsored on behalf of your users. And the developer, if accepted, has credit. So the developer doesn't even have to pay for this gas sponsorship. What happens is that through this program, the developer receives a grant, and that grant will be used first to pay for gas sponsorship. So,
so,
um, go
wait,
ahead.
wait. You're telling me that I'm a dev. I want
Mhm.
to integrate a wallet to my app, but my users are not very well versed in Web3, and my app is not really that great. So I want to reduce friction as much as possible. So I can apply to this Superchain app accelerator that Mode and Thirdwell and the rest of the Superchain are working together and get a few credits to sponsor gas for free. I'll get a grant so I can pay gas for my users and they don't have to worry about gas for my app without paying anything.
Exactly. It's a win, win, win across all
Win
boards,
win
right?
win. Yeah. Love it. Yeah.
Uh, so and what's cool is that if we scroll down here, we see for mode specifically, right on the mainnet, we see things like, hey, you guys have use of our contracts, Connect SDK, engine, account abstraction that we're talking about, and pay, which is their fiat on ramps. All of this is already enabled for mode. So anything that you guys are messing around with in Playground, you guys can use on the mode network. Cool, cool.
Love
So
it.
last thing I
Oh,
want to go ahead.
sorry, last question. I'm sorry, but last one. So we see that you guys have a ton of chains, a ton. There's nothing worse as a dev than looking for a solution, being like, oh, great, there's this tool, and then you see it's like it doesn't support the chain you're wanting to build on. So probably your chain is in there. What happens if there's just a new layer two that you guys don't support closely, and I want to tell you guys, please, I want support for this. I want to show that I'm part of the community, and I want third web supporting this chain. Um, where should people go? What should people do? What's the process? Is there any place that they can ask for it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So one, I really love to direct people to our support page at thirdweb.com/support. If you create a ticket and say, "Hey, I want to support this chain. It's EVM compatible, or it's EVM esque," feel free to create a ticket there. Send it to us. The best things that I see is get a hold of the owners of that chain and have them reach out to us directly at thirdweb.com. And that is one of the easiest ways to get in contact with us. So I another one of the hats I wear is I do a lot of chain integration. So if a chain comes and says, "Hey, I want to get Third Web tooling on my chain. How do I do it?" Reach out to me, right? You can Fetty has my contact information. You guys saw, it's just Joseph at thirdweb.com. Reach out to me. I would love to talk with you guys. I would love to absolutely explore what your chain is, how you intend to use it, and how we can get Third Web tooling turned on.
Epic. So anyone that wants to reach out to Joe, just reach out, or you can contact me. And if you want to add your chain, yeah. And if you're part of a community of a chain that you want to get added and it's not here, just go to that chain and tell them, guys, please contact their web. I need this tooling. That's the best way. Great.
Absolutely. Cool. So I know I want to give some time for questions at the end, but I really want to go over something called ecosystem wallets. Again, in-app wallets is what we're kind of focused on here, and the fact that we can combine this with something called ecosystem wallets, where, as I mentioned before, it is your branded wallet. It is your own identity here. So I'm going to actually disconnect my wallet so you guys can see what that looks like. In this example, we have this wallet called New Age Eco Wallet, right? If you notice, this isn't a traditional EOA in where it says MetaMask or it says Coinbase, right? This is my own wallet. I've created it. I've named it. I've added the logo, and this is my branded wallet. If you also notice, with branded wallets, you can still use in-app wallets. You can still have users log in through conventional social methods. So, right, so you're not losing any capability. You're only gaining the ability to have your branded wallet, to have a wallet where users can go through multiple different apps and have that same account. If we scroll down, you still see the ability for profile linking, right, through ecosystem wallets as well. Really, really simple stuff for ecosystem wallets. And I'm actually going to go through our docs and show you here because I think it explains it just a little bit better. So I'm going to share this tab here, ecosystem wallets in our docs, right? What is it? How do you get started? Think of this as your own branded wallet. Again, this uses in-app wallet service. This uses these social logins to create these branded ecosystem wallets. And it shows up, and if you look at the modal and you look at the example on the playground, it shows up exactly like every other EOA, right? You can have it top and center. You can have it above, even MetaMask and Coinbase and email logins and say, "Hey, I want you guys to log in through your ecosystem wallet." Gaming wise, it's very helpful if you are familiar with things like Riot, right? They have a Riot ID. If you're things with Blizzard and BattleNet, they have a BattleNet ID. This is that exact same solution for your application. And so, like, what can you do with it? Well, you can have branded wallets. Again, we talked about how you can have cross application authentication, meaning that users can have session keys for apps, and session keys are how you can define who can perform functions on behalf of a wallet. You can make these cross chain, right? You can make these. You have a whole host of analytics that you guys can use, and then you can also have a list of partners that you can share this ecosystem wallet with. So maybe you want to be within a tight community. You can do that as well. You have the option to restrict wallet access, or you can make it publicly open to everyone. And so some popular use cases are things like gaming studios, as I mentioned. Zai is a very big user in the ecosystem wallets. If you've ever played some of their games, if you ever gone through some of their flows, you'll see that ecosystem wallets are the solution that they've decided to use. Um, and we can do things like loyalty programs. Maybe you have multiple applications. Maybe you're building a DeFi app and you want to track when a user goes into a staking application. You want to track when a user goes through a redeeming application, right? You can still have that same user activity across different applications, but because it's the same account, you don't have to worry about trying to convert anything. You don't have to worry about trying to have them add a different wallet address. It is all there for you. It is all easily accessible through the ecosystem wallet. And then again, chains. If Mode ever wanted to come out and say, "Hey guys, we have a suite of applications. And if you use your Mode wallet to connect to these applications, that means that you have the same wallet account across all these applications. You don't have to, um, make sure that if you're using a MetaMask, that you're using the same wallet account. You don't have to make sure that if you're using just social logins, a new wallet isn't going to be spun up for you. You can trust that it's the same account across all these applications that are built on this chain. So, ecosystem wallets are going to be one of your best friends as you build out your dApps and as you start growing and bringing on partners to your applications. Cool, cool. So I know I kind of digressed, talked a little bit about the playground here, but I think it was going to be a little bit more helpful and in depth on in app wallets than what we had on the slides today. So I kind of want to give a heads up. Any questions from anyone? Anything I can go through?
I think no, I think everything's clear, at least in the chats that I'm seeing.
Perfect,
Yep.
perfect.
I'm gonna share your chain list link now that I didn't do that, because I think it's important with all the layer twos, all the L1s, all the different chains and ecosystems that we have now. Tools like this help smoothen out the process. Do you wanna jump back to the presentation if you want? And
Yeah.
just so you know, we are in the 50-minute mark. I'm
Hmm.
super okay with going over a little bit of 1 hour with all the brave people that we still have with us. And this will be a recording in YouTube. So if any of you are super tired of listening to Joe spit out facts and alpha and great stuff about Thirdweb, you can pause it, go eat something, drink something, and you can keep watching it later, as always. But yeah, happy to jump into the demo, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna let's see if I can bring this up. Perfect. So let me kind of share with you all this demo that we have that we've created, and I'm going to show you a couple things. Right, it's going to show you how to create a mint site. It's going to show you what it takes for in-app wallet creation, what it looks like to create that login flow, all of this great stuff on this demo. So this is my super simple Dino drop demo. A user comes in, they can either use Pay or traditional SDKs to help mint with it, and it should be a really seamless experience as well as giving you the code required to use this information. So let's go ahead and get started. First off, we need some sort of login screen, right? We need some sort of way for users to connect to our app. And I've actually split it out here, right? So that way we can see exactly what it takes for traditional logins, but also in-app wallets through social logins. So in order to create this screen here, super simple, right? As we talked about earlier and we saw in the playground as well. At the very top, we have things like our client IDs. I'm okay with showing our client ID because client IDs are meant for the client. It's okay that these are public. As you go through Thirdweb and you create your account and you create your API keys, um, you're going to get a key pair. You're going to get a client ID, which is okay for the front end stuff, and you're going to get a secret key, which you don't want to show. You want to keep hidden, and that's all for back end. That's for all your back end um, transactions and usage of the SDK. So going on, we have things like in-app wallets, right? This is really the focus of this workshop. So how do we make the in-app wallet? How do we specify all of this stuff? Um, as you can see here in the code, what we're going to do is we're going to do two different buttons. They're both going to be connect button components, right? So connect button here. Um, and then one is going to have a list of just regular whatever our regular connect button component is, and then one is going to specify all of the social logins that we have as well. So this is what we have: 3, 6, 9, 12, or 15 lines of code. If you count these divs down here, in order to get all of our social logins, 20 if we count up here, right? Um, and that's it, right? So in 20 lines of code, you can have your your social connects, you can have your connect buttons for your website. So going on here, this section that's highlighted is everything you need, right? You don't even need any of the stuff up top for the in-app wallet line to create this experience. So if you want this experience, that's all you need. But as we're talking about social logins and we're talking about making it even easier to onboard users, if you want social login options, right? And specific social login options that we're talking about here. So, for example, At the top here, we see things like Google, Apple, Facebook phone, Discord, email, Farcaster. So these are the kind of login methods that I've said I want to support these login methods on my app. And the highlighted code here is how you bring in those login methods, right? So if you're familiar with any sort of code development experience, you see, hey, we're creating an object of options. That's options has an array of all of our auth options, and then it's going to be put into a variable of our wallet, right? Um, and we can pass in this wallet list in this highlighted section. So we have our client, we have our chain that we're working with, we have our list of wallets, and then we have what our button, what we want it to say. So for this example, I just wanted it to say social login. So I've actually specified that here. And when you do that, this is the kind of modal that you get once you click that button, right? You can see all these different options that we have. We have our phone number, we have our email address. So once you click that social login button that we showed earlier, this is the modal that is popped up. And again, look at the lines of code in the highlighted section. This is all it took to get that component up and running for your dApp. So you're speeding up your development time. You're making it easier for maybe team members who aren't very familiar with Web3, right? There's nothing really Web3 here in that we're looking at. There's nothing really um, low level. We've extracted all of that out of our components here. So that's a really kind of quick way that I can show you guys using in-app wallets for your Mint site. And so, moving on, we have other components of our Mint site. We need things like, hey, how do we actually mint? How do we show that once I click on a button? In this example, this is a traditional claim button that we have here. Claim your Dino in the very middle. This white button called traditional claim is what we're working with, and this is your traditional, like, I don't want to go through pay, I don't want to go through fiat on ramps, I want to cater to Web3 native users, right? This is going to take funds out of the user's connected wallet, and this is the code snippet for that, right? Very simple. As you can see, this claim button that we have here, you're not asking for things like what are all of the parameters on the contract level for claiming this? What are all of the types on a contract level for claiming this, right? So all we really care about is what's the contract we're working with, what's the chain we're working on, and then as we do this claim, right? What kind of contract is it? It's an 1155. Perfect. How many do you want to claim? One. What's the token ID that you want to claim for this user, right? And we can specify that here. In this case, I actually made it random, so I have 3 token IDs, I believe, and so it will um, randomly pick a number between 0 and 2 for this instance, and pass that out to the user. So if we're using user clicks on that traditional cane, it will pop up in your MetaMask, right? Again, this is kind of what in-app wallets aims to solve, is this experience of, let me interrupt your app and take you out of it and take you to a wallet, right? It'll pop up the wallet, and then that's it. You're good to go. Once you sign it, you've claimed your Dino. Now, another option is claiming with Pay. So with Pay, what we can do is things like, if a user doesn't have enough funds, well, let's prop up an option for them to get more funds, right? And how do we do that? We use the exact same claim button. We have the exact same initial code here that you can see. And I've just added a little bit of this pay modal stuff to kind of pretty up the experience. And so if a user goes through this route and they don't have enough funds, or we're going through any kinds of payment methods, you'll see this modal pop up where you can select choose payment method. They can say, hey, I want to get more funds through a credit card. Or if you still want to cater to Web3, you can specify a crypto option as well. Maybe they want to swap between tokens in order to pay for this stuff, which is also available option. Really, really handy. And so, as a Web2 native user, I'm gonna say crypto. I don't know what that is. Credit card. I know, I'm familiar. I know what that is. I can select this option, and on the far right screen here, we have a user doesn't have to worry about any routes. A user is not worried about selecting chains. Right, all of that's already pre-designated in our code base that we saw, and the experience for the user is very, very simple and easy to follow. It's familiar in that if you go through other shop sites, right, you can see this kind of same flow. A shop site will say, "Hey, great, you've decided on your purchase. How do you want to pay for it? Choose your payment method." Oh, cool. You want to use a credit card? Cool. Here, click on credit card, enter your information, and once that's done, you can go ahead and complete your purchase. Right? This follows a very familiar flow that we're trying to capture for Web2 audiences as we work on building them into our ecosystem. Go ahead, Fetty.
You were missing me already. So, I want to know, as a dev, this is great. How do I get the money on the other side? Like, where does this money go when they pay with the credit card, with their crypto? Like,
Mhm.
how do I claim this money?
Yeah. So, a couple different ways, right? We have, and again, in that chain, in that Thirdweb playground that we put in here earlier, that's going to be where you can mess around with the different flows. One, money comes in traditionally through smart contracts, right? Funds are handled through smart contracts as an individual comes in and gets this cryptocurrency. That cryptocurrency is sent to your smart contract. On the front end, all the user sees is that they're paying $1.06 in USD. On the back end, what we see is that they're also getting a dollar or 1.92 Matic, right? Not a dollar, but 1.92 Matic tokens. So if as your users go through this flow, if you're doing it at a smart contract level, all of these tokens are sent to that smart contract, which you can then withdraw, split, do whatever you guys want to do, right? We also have a different option where, for example, you can do things like direct payments. So you can specify what wallet address you want these tokens to be sent to. And so this is really useful if you guys are doing any sort of physical goods, right? Maybe you're making merchandise, so it doesn't really necessarily have a smart contract tied to it. But what you can say is, hey, once a user completes this flow, send that requisite funds to a wallet address specifically. And you as the developer can go to that wallet address. You have control over it, and you can mess around with your fund management through there. So that's another option through this. The playground is going to be your best bet in order to look at those flows, and it's going to be under pay as well.
Nice. So you even have a place where you can try it out and
Yep,
see the options that you have.
exactly, exactly.
I'm still waiting to get a question that you cannot answer to, but that was great. Awesome. I'll let you continue now.
Cool, cool,
Thanks.
cool. Of course, man. So going through the tech demo, this is the screen for crypto natives. If they want to do swaps, they can choose what wallet they want to swap from. And then so going back, now that we've done kind of the traditional claim, the claim with pay, we're going to go back a little bit into our SDKs, right? We know that our SDKs are full stack. We know our SDKs are works with any platform that you guys want to develop on. But what does that look like, right? So, for example, here I want to try and show what NFTs I've minted for the user. A user's gone through this whole process and they want to see what they got out of it. So for our SDKs, we actually have a few options and we have a few features that are extremely helpful. So in order to support this flow of displaying our NFTs, couple things need to happen. One, we need to get our contract that we're working with, right? If we want to display an NFT, we need to know what contract this NFT exists on. And to do that, we've implemented things called extensions, and extensions are a way to extrapolate all of the lower level code into a much more concise, readable, and maintainable code snippet for developers to use. So, for example, here we have our get contract snippet. And for this contract, we need things like what's our client object? Our client was, as you saw earlier, tied to our client ID. This is API key usage. Very familiar if you use any other sort of library or service, you know you have to work with API keys. This is the exact same thing. We want to define what chain. So in this case, it would be either Sepolia mode, whatever chain you guys want to be working with. And then we need the address of the contract. And if you notice, these three things are pretty basic and pretty high level. We're not thinking about, hey, what's the API we have to pass? What's all of the functions and their arguments and their types we have to pass? We don't have to worry about any of that. All we have to do is worry about what chain we're working with and what's the address for this contract. And we, on the back end, can extrapolate all of that lower level information from these two things. So really, really powerful stuff here as you guys start working with the SDK. And so I mentioned extensions earlier, and we want to be able to say, okay, I now need to get all of the owned NFTs on my contract for a specific user. And traditionally doing this, it is very, very time consuming, and a lot of code has to go in to performing this kind of operation. With Thirdweb, all you have to do is use our extension and say, "Hey, I want to get the owned NFTs on this contract. I want to have a maybe have a sort of duration, from 0 to 10 that you want, or maybe even an address, and then even an address for the account you want to look up. Right, this is your currently connected wallet in this instance. And once you use this extension, you can have a list. It will return you a list of owned NFTs for that specific contract. And then you can use that list to display it as shown here. So very, very simple, very powerful. If you saw all of this stuff was less than 10, 15 lines of code separately. So together you now have a very concise app. And concise apps are beautiful code wise because it means you can read through them easier, you can maintain them easier, and it's easier to onboard new developers into your code repo, right? They don't have to read through hundreds of thousands of lines of code. Um, it is now shorter and it's easier to onboard and bring them up to speed for your apps. And so that's our tech demo. That's our in-app sites. If you guys have any questions, if you guys want to get involved a little bit deeper with Thirdweb, all of our socials are here as well that you guys can see. And then yeah, that's pretty much it for on my end. Fethy, do you have anything else? Any other questions, man? How?
I don't. Usually, I ask you the last question is always two things. So one is if I'm a you hooked me. I want to test this out. I want to try out Thirdweb. Where should I go? But I think after we saw, I would tell you guys go to the playground and just play around with it and check the docs as well. And also this, like all the links are. This is awesome. And one last thing would be if you had to recommend to a dev, general. I'm not saying a game dev, whatever. Their first interaction with Thirdweb or the first thing they need to do. What would you recommend? What's like a little cool thing that you could do? I would say my answer would be Playground. I love
Yeah,
that. But
yeah.
what would be yours? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, depending on how familiar with the rip you are, if you're still just trying to learn about it, our YouTube channel is great because it gives a whole bunch of examples and videos on how to create certain user flows, use cases with Thirdweb. If you want to start playing around with it and get dirty with it, right? You at this point you've decided, okay, I want to use Thirdweb. Let me play around and see what it's like. Use the playground, and then if you're at a level where hey, I've committed. I want to use Thirdweb. I want to do in-app wallets. I want to do account abstraction. I want to do ecosystem wallets. All this great stuff. And our docs are going to be the best place for that. So let me actually send. I don't think I put those in the chat yet. Here
We have
is
here
our docs.
the awesome. I'll send all of this in the chat and they'll live forever in there. Love it.
Perfect. Perfect.
Well, then a little bit over the hour. This was perfect. I want everyone to know that this, all of this was not improvised. Joe prepared an amazing presentation, but of course we had some freedoms. I came in with questions that I came up through the presentation, and hopefully and thankfully Joe was able to answer to all of them. So yeah, thank you very much, Joe, for this presentation. This was awesome. I think I've learned a lot, and I now want to play around in the playground. That was super cool to see. And yeah, just thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you everyone for being here, and yeah, see you on the next one then.
Thank you very much for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Yep. I'm glad you had fun. So yep, see you in the next one. Have a good rest of the week. Bye everyone.